You have entered Power Drive.
Oh, wow!
John Duggan.
Jaron Shane, how are we both doing?
We are very good. How are you?
Well, good, thank you. Have you ever had a more competitive golfing environment than you do right now? Probably not. 156 players and the most deep field of the four majors for this PGA Championship, which starts at Oak Hill in upstate New York tomorrow, as you say, Ger, noon Irish time, and four Irish players in the field: Rory McIlroy, Shane Lowry, Padraig Harrington and Seamus Power. Quite a dejected Rory McIlroy almost that appeared at the press conference yesterday. A little bit glum, a little bit down.
Yeah, what do you think of this? Because we had this conversation with Nathan earlier. I'm like, go forth and tell everybody everything you think and be your own. Come on. He's at his best when he's
a flamingo. Yeah, letting himself go. Yeah, I like Rory when he's given out a bit the lift her. But I think he plays better for it.
On the regular tour he does.
Yeah.
But in the majors,
yeah, of course.
It's been the...
But he wasn't winning majors before the lift.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. And I just feel maybe he just is fed up of talking exuberantly about everything, which he was doing before the Masters, and maybe he just needs to let his game do the talking. I think that's not a bad thing, to be honest. I just think it needs to be just all about golf for Rory. He's so expressive. The media love him for that. Even back to the time he was ripping his shirt, was in Dubai. He just wears his heart on his sleeve and it's so lovable about him, and he's so candid, and it's just fantastic when you see the anodyne nature of most sports people. But I just do think it just needs to be what we see through the 72 holes this week. And he's actually a member there. His wife Erica's from there, up in Rochester. I think he's got Michael Bannon there. Tiger Woods has been helping him out a bit. I think we can talk. I think I'm exhausted talking about Rory McIlroy around major championships, so I just love to see him just do it. There's always going to be expectation. I suppose the expectation is dulled by the fact that the players around him are playing so well.
When does the odds of a Rory win lengthen to the point where you're like, I'm back in?
Yeah. Well, not since it was Hoylake when he won in 2014. I remember he was 18-1 that week for the Open Championship, and he's never really been those prices since. Like, he's about 12, 14 at the most this week.
I'm not interested at that price.
No. How can you be interested if you were back in Rory? You see, a lot of the profit that's been made in Rory the last few years has been on each way, where he's been having to rake of top tens and you get your money back or a small profit on it. But if you're looking to win, you're talking about 9 years by 4. You're talking over 30 majors where you're losing. So I wouldn't be. I mean, I'd love to see him just go out and just win it by 10 shots. But I just look at the competitiveness of the field. Like, you've got John Rahm's won 4 times this year, won the Masters. Scotty Scheffler's playing out of his skin, won the Players' Championship. Last week at the Live Golf, Dustin Johnson beat Cameron Smith in the playoff. And we saw by the Masters with the way Phil Mickelson, Patrick Reed all played.
Golf is golf, it turns out.
It is, yeah, unfortunately, for the villains. We don't like to see the villains win, the goodies and the baddies. But yeah, so I've gone for 4 guys. The good friends that are Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay, I'm going to headline Xander Schauffele at 16-1 for 9 each way of our virtual cash. We are a bit down this year, but we're hoping to get it back over the next while. Xander Schauffele is a model of consistency. He's an Olympic champion, so he's won a big event. 23 majors, 10 top 10s. So if you're looking each way, I think that's not a bad thing. Second last time out at the Wells Fargo. 7 PGA Tour wins, 3 wins last season. Hasn't missed a cut all year. His last 5 appearances have yielded results of tied 5th, tied 10th, 4th and 2nd. 4th in strokes gained total, which is the stats, and 5th in approach, which is important at a course like Oak Hill. What's not to like about Xander Schauffele, who's the headline pick? You want to call him Schauffele, Schaufella, whatever you want to call him. I think he might win this week. I think he's the headliner. Patrick Cantlay, I know I get such stick for picking this guy all the time, but I have been doing this 25 years. I do think I'd like to back myself like Rory McIlroy. I don't need to prove myself to anybody. So the big change with Patrick Cantlay, he's now got Tiger Woods' caddy on the bag. He sacked his caddy a few weeks ago and he got Joe LaCava on the bag. I think that could be a huge help. Joe LaCava won the Masters with Fred Couples. He was there for Tiger Woods' win at Augusta a few years ago. He was with Woods for 10 years. I think that could be a really big thing for Patrick Cantlay, who does have the all-round game and the temperament, you'd have to think. He's won 8 times on the PGA Tour, including the Memorial Tournament, which is a similar course to Oak Hill. He's also won the Tour Championship. A lot of people don't like his slow pace of play, but But if it's a winning bet at 18 to 1 for €8 each way, you can say that you want to take him until next month to get into their, the hut to get the trophy, the Wanamaker trophy, because it won't matter if he's won. So Patrick Cantlay, in his last 8 tournaments, his worst finish was tied 21st. 5 top 5s this season. Driving the ball very well. You need to do that at Oak Hill because there's a lot of tight fairways and strong rough. 3rd in strokes gained off the tee. And I do think he actually has the bottle. He just doesn't have enough reps. But his last couple of major tournaments, he's actually played quite well. Ricky Fowler is going to be the comeback hit of golf, folks, at 60 to 1 for 5 each way. 103rd in the world at the end of last year. Now 49th. Why? He's working with Butch Harmon again, the best coach in the game. He's still young. He's only 34. He has a 2nd place at the Masters, US Open and the Open in his past. He has 3 top 10s at the PGA. He's got, on his last 5 starts on tour, finished in the top 20 in every event. His irons are going very well. He's hitting his irons very well at the moment, Ricky. I remember when he won the Players' Championship a few years ago, showed a lot of resilience to do that. I think Ricky Fowler is going to be a comeback story in the next year to 18 months in golf. Why not this week at 60 to 1 for 5 each way? And the final pick through green tinted glasses is Seamus Power at 200 to 1 for 3 each way. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you read the Paul Kimmage stuff. Fascinating two-parter over the last couple of weeks about Seamus and his journey from...
Seems like a good fella.
Yeah. Waterford to East Tennessee to like going round in the Avis car and being 429th in the world at the end of 2020. This is only early 2023 and he's now 39th in the world. What a story this is. He's won a couple of times in the Tour. He turned up the PGA last year, tied 9th in his first start. Then he was tied 12th at the US Open. He does make a lot of birdies. I was going through the stats on him. And through all that adversity and having to be the guy living in the Holiday Inns and the, whatever they call them over in America, the budget hotels, driving around. And now you've gone from that to being somebody who's got millions of dollars in the bank, a couple of year exemption. You know, you are as free as Rory McIlroy is in the straitjacket. You are just as free as a bird. And I think that there's always a surprise, there's always a name, there's always somebody who comes out of nowhere and does something in these tournaments. It's not always going to be Ram, Sheffield or Rory. It doesn't work that way.
In the PGA in particular?
Yeah, exactly. Jason.
This is the one.
Yeah, Jason Duffner won this 10 years ago. 20 years ago, Sean McKeel turned up at Oak Hill and won and had not won a tournament before, and he's never won a tournament since. So you can have strange results. And Mito Pereira last year threw it away on the final hole and allowed Justin Thomas to get in and win the playoff against Will Zalatoris. So I think Seamus Power, I think the penny is dropped for him. I think he's got a very good short game, and I think a 200 to 1 for an Irish perspective, it might be worth a run for your money. So Seamus Power, Ricky Fowler, the kind of more the each way ones. Patrick Cantlay, and the headline tip for Virtual Insanity. PGA Edition, folks, is Xander Schauffele. It'll probably be the 5th story if Seamus Power wins because of all the sport we have this weekend.
That's this week's Virtual Insanity.
You have entered Power Drive.
I think they might make it number 1 if he wins.
Yeah, hopefully.
Top of the league. Unless Limerick crash out, which is a possibility.
Yeah, that is mad, isn't it? It's amazing what one game can do, the Clare-Limerick game, just in terms of the whole... Like, it's great as a Clare fan, if Clare beat Cork, we're in a Munster final. If we lose to Cork, but if Tipperary beat Limerick are out and Clare are through. So it's kind of fallen Clare's way a bit at the moment.
I think it looks like Thurles is going to be close to a sellout for this game, whereas...
It's on TV, yes!
Whereas the game between Mayo and Kerry might not be.
Right.
I think sales at the moment are sluggish. Now the weather's going to be really good, so maybe that changes people's minds and they all decide to go for the day out.
Are people really interested in the football championship though? Really until the quarterfinals?
Well, that's right.
Yeah, they are.
What I'm getting to here is why is Kerry Mayo not doing more business when it's Kerry and Mayo, two of the best teams in the country?
Because I think there are 16 round robin teams into 12. They're both going to qualify for the preliminary quarterfinals at least anyway.
But do you want to avoid that preliminary quarterfinal, don't you?
Like if you're going to win it, you're going to win it. So I just think there are too many meaningless games in the Gaelic Football Championship at the moment. One thing I was very interested in was Michael Foley in the Sunday Times had this really good idea, which I thought, yeah, this is a really good idea, to actually split football and hurling completely and keep the split season. So you do the football championship between, say, whatever, February and July, and then you've got the football club season. But you have the hurling club season for the first 6 months, and then you've got the hurling championship after that. So between whatever, July and September, October. I think that would be a really good way of letting the championship at inter-county level breathe, keeping the split seasons, not having all this madness of traffic jam and congestion you have at the moment, which is annoying everybody.
We definitely talked about this one time before, and I remember the answer that comes back is, what about the dual club player whose games keep getting put off at various stages? I do wonder if there's no way of like having a forum where you listen to those people and they have a say, and you take on board what they have to say, and you say, okay, well, everybody has to give a little bit for this. But I think that, like, on balance, having them have their own windows would be pretty amazing,
wouldn't it? You'd have, and then I think you'd also then, I think, be able to get a bit more clarity in everybody's minds about, okay, we can run the provinces in February, March, and then we can run the kind of a league structure or whatever, or a full now clear football structure until July, and have no competition for hurling for TV, and then run, and hurling is obviously a shorter season anyway, then run hurling, summer hurling, July, August, September, and have your hurling championship finished then.
Well, Colin O'Rourke's point yesterday was even around the nature of the championship. So in the football, he was like, you play the league, and then you go into a championship structure in your province, then you go back into a league now for the round robins, and then you go back into a championship for the quarterfinals, which confuses players.
In a way, right? Not really.
To a degree, though, it's
like the players they've got to do their jobs. I think that what's happened here is that the league and the provincial championships have now morphed into less relevant, because we're about to have a round robin, which is exactly the type of system we should have. Now, you could have a home and away, and you could have a third tier, so there's more jeopardy. Like 16 teams is too many to be competing for the All-Ireland. We know there aren't 16 teams who could win it.
Well, why don't we just have 16 to 8?
Well, why don't we have 12, 10 and 11 or 12, depending on whether or not you want New York to come over and back. I'm fairly sure the organisation has more than enough money to facilitate that, and it could be a really good thing for them if they were to think long term about this. But if you actually had 3 tiers instead of 2, have your provincial championships at the start of the year, and there's a trophy, and you incentivise the teams to win that by offering massive amounts of support for the winning team's holiday fund, or whatever you need to do. Like maybe you guarantee them an extra $1 million in funding for floodlight projects around the county, and it's a big massive celebration, and everybody comes to those games because it's important. And then you have your proper home and away 8 or 9 games that are all championship games all around the country. Is that not, like, is the solution not staring us right in the face? A league-based championship?
Well, the solution for me is always to have you have to have 4 leagues, because then you have that extravaganza of Croke Park, where you have a Friday night, say, Division 4 final, then you have Saturday Division 3 and Division 2 finals, and then you have the All-Ireland final on the Sunday, and then you have the massive bank holiday for the country on the Monday.
I think using your bank holidays is also a really good idea. There's been lots of Mondays recently where there's been no sport on that are bank holidays, and you're like, why are they missing these opportunities? It used to be great on the August bank holiday weekend for that to happen. I don't know. It's
a festival of football for the 4 leagues, like Division 4, 3, 2 and 1, and people get promoted every year, and then you have your 8-team Sam Maguire Cup, or 16, whatever.
That'd be pretty intense, and it'd be brilliant.
Yeah, home and away. Dublin go to Kerry back up to Dublin, Mayo, Dublin, and then maybe the top 2 finish off at the grand final. Like something not too dissimilar to Aussie rules.
What about Julian Nagelsmann being ruled out of the Spurs job? Where are you in the Spurs melodrama at the moment? Thomas Frank could be great.
Thomas Frank could be great. Roberto De Zerbi could be great. Sloke could be great. The Feyenoord guy. They all could be great, but they got to work with Daniel Levy and Donna Cullen and the Enoch board. So that's a challenge, based on the fact that it seems that Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho and Nuno Espirito Santo and all of these managers didn't seem to have that beautiful gel that Mauricio Pochettino seemed to have with the board. And like, it was a big mistake to sack Pochettino, and of all places he's going to Chelsea. It's like Brian Clough losing the power struggle at Derby County in the early 70s and then rocking up a couple of years at Forest and winning 2 European Cups.
Yeah, it's possible that Pochettino wins 2 European Cups, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not beyond the bounds of possibility.
Because the money's there at Chelsea. And like, one thing about Spurs, you don't hear Spurs being linked with any players. Then maybe you need the management structure and the recruitment and all that to be in there, but you don't hear Spurs being linked with anybody. Arsenal are already making their plans for next season, 200 million, whatever the Kroenke war chest is. Well, they're getting rid of Xhaka, they're getting Rice in, they've got these targets.
We'll see about that.
So
that comes in the immediate aftermath of them being crushingly murdered at home by a supposedly inferior opposition, and then all of a sudden the transfer leaks happen. Oh, that's interesting timing, isn't it?
I think they were
distract them from our failure.
I think they were shot. I think they were gone.
They were, yeah. And maybe it was just the last sting of a dying wasp against Newcastle.
And it's going to be painful for Arsenal because it's going to be harder for them next season. It'll be harder for everybody. The one exciting thing about it is Liverpool, for their own sake, should get their act together.
Well, they've got a shock new German director who's come in.
Yeah.
This is very interesting. We'll do more on that later on in the week.
Yeah, he's good pals with Klopp. Chelsea should get their act together. United, if the Qataris actually win this, Newcastle, City, it's going to be a big landscape changing over the next 5 years.
Villa.
There's Spurs. Villa they've got a new guy in there. Was it somebody in the back room?
Guy,
yeah, Barcelona.
Yeah, there you go. And those guys are, they've a lot of money.
And they're also very important. The football director.
Spurs forget about Spurs.
Let's one last thing. Shane Long. Shane Long had that moment that most people don't get in their lives, where he knocked over the world champions at home with an absolutely stunning goal. That's a career right there. The header against England was a friendly, was it? It was a friendly. Was he also the fastest player in the Premier League at one point?
There were stats about him, weren't there? His pace, ridiculous.
It's the only time I ever cursed on Twitter was when Shane Long scored that goal. I said, I want a mulligan for this, but that was an effing brilliant live moment.
You were in the stadium.
Look, that's the first time I remember now I felt that Lansdowne Road had become a soccer stadium and became like it was the birth of the Lansdowne Road Aviva Stadium because before that it wasn't, but that was the first day of it.
I wish him the very best. I wonder, would he be interested in coming back and playing a bit of football in Ireland, or maybe
a bit of hurling? Maybe
just a little bit of hurling. He's not too old just yet. He could do it. He scored the fastest goal in the Premier League as well. 7.69 seconds is the note coming through here from Colin.
He's one of our greatest strikers of all time, like from an Irish perspective, isn't he? Like to have such a career in the Premier League consistently.
No. We don't need to overrate it. Like he had a great career.
Not be the top 10 Irish strikers of all time.
Well, top 10, like
that's the greatest Irish strikers of all time.
I mean,
depends on how big your list is going, but the top 10 strikers of all time in Ireland would be pretty impressive.
First off, it's Robbie Keane, and then it's John Aldridge,
Frank
Stapleton,
and
then it's Niall Quinn, and then after that, I'd need to go back and ask Gilesy about his generation. But like, I don't feel the need to grandfather him onto any list. He had an incredible career with great moments, but I don't, he didn't hit the heady heights.
Consistently Premier League is my point. Like, I think he's certainly in a conversation for one of our great strikers. I'm not saying he's ahead of any of those names you mentioned. Of course,
they're like, what's your definition of greatness then? You're like 8th or 9th or 10th on the list, but like the gap between you and the top of the list.
Consistently in the Premier League. Imagine if we had strikers like Evan Ferguson all of a sudden is getting a few goals in the Premier League. We're losing our minds.
I would just check the stats on how consistently he scored in the Premier League.
Who?
Shane Long,
yeah.
Well, he was a consistent Premier League striker, but he was one of those workhorses.
11th in the all-time list for Irish scorers.
I always laugh at the Trapattoni Shane Long.
Nathan says he's 11th in the all-time list for Irish scorers in the English top flight.
Right.
I ask Shane Long why he no baby. That's one of my favourite ever quotes in Irish football. Maybe we can play it.
I don't think we need to anymore. That was perfect.
JD.
Yeah, all right, lads.
On that note, good stuff. More from John, of course, on Saturday afternoon on Off the Ball on News.